The chairman of the board of the Milwaukee Area Technical College admits she felt a sense of urgency to approve a new faculty contract.
That has protesters stormed the state capitol over collective bargaining rights. Well, now, Fox 6 investigator Brian Polson reports that a powerful critic of the school is looking to shake up the MATC board.
This is not about how much people make on their pensions.
While the teachers at Milwaukee Area Technical College are rallying in support of their fellow public employees, they're hardly feeling their pain. The salaries of some MATC instructors match or exceed that of professors at UW-Madison.
No way. That's not plausible.
It's true. According to data released publicly by MATC, the top 50 instructors earn between $130,000 and $160,000 a year. And Michael Rosen says that's the way it ought to be.
Milwaukee is lucky to have that level of talent here.
He's president of American Federation of Teachers Local 212, the union that represents MATC instructors.
People often say, oh, well, they're teaching welding, so you could hire any welder off the assembly line. But that's not who we hire. We hire people who were top-level managers, directors of welding.
And what about the rest of us paying the bill?
Chris Kleismet says MATC is wasting money gleaned from your property taxes. His organization, Citizens for Responsible Government, published a scathing analysis of MATC spending back in 2006.
If you took all the money that we spend on MATC and put it in a bank account, and instead of sending kids to MATC to educate them, you could write them a check for the cost of full tuition at UWM and save a significant amount of money.
So Kleismet and other conservative tax hawks were incensed when the MATC board voted last week to approve a new collective bargaining agreement with Local 212, even though the old one doesn't expire until June. The new deal insulates more than 1,900 MATC workers from the benefit cuts and loss of bargaining rights looming in Madison.
The heat went up in the kitchen. Let's get this deal done.
The notion that we negotiated this contract to avoid the proposals that Governor Walker made are just absurd on the face of it, and the facts substantiate what I'm saying.
Rosen points out that the union started negotiating with MATC last fall, before Walker was elected.
We began this contract before that proposal was on the table, and we completed this contract before that proposal was on the table.
Technically, that's true. The union's executive board approved the contract 3 days before Governor Walker introduced his budget repair bill. But a Fox 6 investigation finds the union only called for that emergency vote after word of what was in the bill had already leaked out. On Wednesday, February 9th, the Associated Press reported that Walker intends to force public employee unions to pay more for their health and pension costs. And the morning of Thursday, February 10th, the AP wrote state workers fear that Walker will remove their collective bargaining rights. It was that afternoon when Rosen called for an emergency meeting. And on Friday the 11th at 5 p.m., the union's executive board voted to approve the contract.
Once we settle a contract, we don't just let it linger. We want to get that process done.
The governor's formal proposal emerged the following Monday. And by Wednesday, as teachers across the state called in sick to protest in Madison,
you're all aware of the fact that there's a budget repair bill?
The MATC board held its own special meeting at the union's request.
I urge board members to consider holding off on their vote.
Nicolay School Superintendent Rick Monroe cast the only dissenting vote.
May we have roll call, please?
As the MATC board approved the deal.
Did the board recognize that there is obviously some urgency because of what's going on in Madison to get something done quickly?
Of course the board recognized that.
Board President Melanie Holmes admits they were influenced by the governor's proposal, but says they got a good deal for taxpayers at a time when MATC is facing a $23 million deficit.
The collective bargaining agreement that we reached with Local 212 is unprecedented and historic when it comes to the concessions that the union gave the administration.
What people should be focusing on here is that we saved this college $11 million.
And that's the best deal the MATC board could get for the taxpayers? That, my friend, is horse manure.
The new contract does save MATC money, but critics point out that it still leaves instructors paying less for health care than the governor is asking of other state employees, and it doesn't require them to contribute anything to their pension.
We had shaken hands we had made a deal. If then the college administration had said, well, wait a minute, maybe we can get a little bit better deal, that would have been a betrayal of trust.
We really don't want to do anything that would harm that relationship.
Kleismet has a name for that relationship.
We have cartel bargaining. Everybody's on the same side. They are one big cartel.
And critics say it's hard for taxpayers to hold the board accountable since its members are appointed rather than elected.
And any bargainer worth his salt could have done 10 times what this unelected board did for us.
To get on the MATC board, you have to get the approval of another board.
Who decides who those people are then?
I don't know the answer to that question.
The MATC Appointment Committee is headed by Milwaukee Public School Board President Michael Bonds and includes representatives from other local schools.
Look at who they are. They're ex-public employees. They are politicians. They are union members.
Kleismet says that's why the MATC board is stacked in favor of unions. Still, one of MATC's most powerful critics is not calling for the board to be elected. Instead, Republican Senator Glenn Grothman is circulating a bill in Madison that would merely stack the MATC board with more appointees from the business community.
If you look at the type of people on the board, you see the problem immediately. These are not private business people who view the tech school as a way to efficiently provide employees for the employers of the state of Wisconsin. They're just a bunch of liberal people who view the government as a way to get money.
I mean, it's fairly remarkable the breadth of folks in our community who are stakeholders at our colleges who would be barred from service.
On Tuesday, the union that represents more than 400 support staff workers at MATC asked the board to rush its contract too.
We're asking the board that this process be expedited.
If timing was a coincidence for the teachers' deal, with this one, the timeline is clear to all.
The president of Local 212, Michael Rosen, acknowledged to me on Friday that he was aware the governor's bill might include cuts to health and pension benefits for state union workers before he called for the emergency vote. However, he says he was blindsided by the collective bargaining provisions in the bill that surfaced the following Monday. In other words, he maintains that the emergency vote of the union had nothing to do with Walker's bill. He says it was just a coincidence. Brian Polson, Fox 6 Investigators.
Also on Friday, the MATC board met in special session to discuss the contract for support staff from Local 587. They did not take any action. However, at that same meeting, yet another MATC union showed up at the table. IBEW Local 715 now says it too wants a new contract.
It's a car